I work the night shift as a delivery driver. Not the most exciting job, but I enjoy the quiet. At night, the city feels different, like it's holding its breath. My shift usually runs from 10 p.m. until morning. I've gotten used to empty roads, the dull glow of streetlights, and the long stretches of silence. Or at least, I thought I had, until that rainy night 2 months ago. It was pouring that night. Heavy rain hammered the windshield, and even with the wipers going full speed, visibility was awful. I was on my final delivery of the night, heading to a small town on the edge of the city. The road I took was pitch black. No streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the rain. At around 2:30 a.m., I turned onto a narrow stretch of highway. On both sides, there were dark pine woods and flooded fields. GPS said I was 5 minutes from the destination. I turned the radio on low just to keep myself awake. Static mixed with the soft voice of some late-night host, barely audible over the rain. Then I saw her, a figure standing in the middle of the road. I hit the brakes hard. The tires skidded a bit on the wet pavement, stopping me just a few meters away. It was a woman in a long white dress drenched in rain. Her hair hung forward, hiding her face. She stood completely still, arms at her sides, head slightly bowed, like she was waiting for something. I rolled the window down a little and shouted through the rain, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" No response. She didn't even flinch. Rain soaked her from head to toe, and yet she didn't move. Every part of me screamed that something was wrong. A part of me thought she might have been in trouble, but my instincts told me not to get out of the car. I turned on the high beams and slowly inched the car forward. That's when I saw her face, or rather, the lack of one. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin stretched over where her features should have been, blank and expressionless, like someone had erased her. I gasped and threw the car into reverse, backing away so fast I nearly slid off the shoulder. When I stopped and looked again, she was gone, vanished into the rain. No sign of her, no sound, just the heavy downpour on the roof of my car. I hit the gas and sped off. I didn't even make the delivery. My hands were shaking so bad I had to pull over at a gas station 10 miles away. The night attendant gave me a strange look when I walked in, pale, dripping wet, wide-eyed. He asked if I was okay. I told him what I'd seen, expecting him to laugh or shrug it off. But instead, he went quiet. "You were driving past White Bridge Road, weren't you?" I nodded. He sighed. "Years ago, a woman had a wreck out there. Her car slid off the road into the flooded field. No one found her for days. By the time they did, her face was gone. Water and insects had stripped it down to nothing." I don't know if that's true or just one of those ghost stories locals pass around, but I know what I saw. That figure standing still in the rain with no face. I requested a new route after that. I've never driven that stretch of road again. Still, sometimes when I'm out on late night runs and the rain is falling just right, I'll glance in the rearview mirror and swear I see someone in a white dress standing still in the road behind me, motionless, facing me, faceless. I live alone in a small apartment on the 4th floor of an aging building. It's nothing fancy, peeling paint, creaky pipes, and walls thin enough to hear your neighbor's TV, but it's quiet and cheap, and it's mine. I've always liked the stillness of late nights. There's something comforting about being awake when the world is asleep. That changed last winter. It was a Tuesday night, cold, wet, and unusually silent. I remember it clearly because I had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV still on. I woke up a little before 2:30 a.m. to the sound of rain tapping against the windows. I got up, turned off the TV, and was about to head to bed when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on my front door. I froze, not just because it was late, but because my building has a secured front entrance downstairs. No one can get to the apartment doors without buzzing in, and no one had buzzed. I walked over the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. I stood there a moment, listening. Nothing. I checked the time, 2:43 a.m. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was a neighbor. I went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. 2:43 a.m., 3 knocks. I had stayed up this time, curious. The knock was soft, measured, almost polite. I went to the door, looked through the peephole. Again, nothing. No footsteps walking away, no voices, no sound at all. This time, I opened the door. The hallway was empty, just the usual dim yellow light buzzing from the overhead fixtures. A damp chill crept in from the stairwell, and I felt the hairs on my arms rise. I closed the door, locked it, and left the lights on that night. The third night, I decided to set up my phone to record video facing the door. I wanted proof, or at least an explanation. I stayed up watching something on my laptop, trying to keep my mind off it. Sure enough, at exactly 2:43 a.m., the knocking returned. 3 slow knocks. I stared at the door, my chest tight. This time I didn't move. I didn't look through the peephole. I just waited, barely breathing. After a full minute of silence, I stopped the recording and played it back. The footage showed my door, and at 2:12 a.m., clear as day, 3 knocks. But no one was there. Not a shadow, not a shape, nothing. But then, right before the video ended, something moved, just barely. The door handle, it twitched, just a little, like someone had tried to turn it. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I asked around. My neighbors hadn't heard anything. One older lady 2 doors down mentioned that someone used to live in my apartment, a quiet man in his 50s who passed away in his sleep. Heart attack. She said it like it didn't matter. That night, I pushed a chair against the door. I left every light on. I didn't care if I looked paranoid. My phone was set up to record again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time it didn't stop. 3 knocks, then another 3, then again. The knocking grew louder, more forceful. I sat frozen on the couch, phone in hand, video recording, heart thudding. Then it stopped, just like that. Complete silence. I waited a long time before getting up. When I finally approached the door and looked through the peephole, still no one, but there was something new. On the floor outside my door, someone had placed a single wet footprint. Barefoot, human. It faced directly toward my door. I opened it, quickly against my better judgment, but the hallway was empty again. I stepped out, looked both ways, and turned back toward my door. The footprint was gone. I moved out 2 weeks later. I didn't even finish my lease. I didn't care about the deposit. I found another place across town, newer, brighter, with a security system and a doorman. I haven't had any knocks since. But sometimes when I wake up randomly in the middle of the night, I check the time. And if it's ever close to 2:43 a.m., I find myself staring at my new apartment door and listening for the sound I never want to hear again. Knock, knock, knock. Would you like me to proceed with story 3 now? I once lived in a small 2-story house on the quiet outskirts of town. It was a rental, cheap, with a little backyard and a white fence. Perfect for someone like me who enjoyed peace and solitude. The landlord told me the house had been empty for a while, but they'd renovated it, and there was nothing to worry about. At first, everything was fine. Actually, it was lovely. Morning sunlight filtered gently through the curtains, and at night, the wind whispered through the trees like a lullaby. But there was one thing I noticed early on. The second floor window, the one in the room I used as my office, always gave me an uneasy feeling. It faced the backyard. Nothing strange about that. But whenever I sat there working at night, I constantly felt like someone was watching me from the outside. Of course, I told myself it was just my imagination. After all, it was the second floor. No one could be standing there, right? Until one rainy night. It had been raining since late afternoon, heavy and unrelenting. Wind howled across the roof like it carried a message. I was working late, hunched over my laptop, when I suddenly shivered. The room grew cold, unnaturally cold. I stood up to close the window, then froze. There was a handprint on the glass, clear as day, right in the middle of the pane, on the outside. A small hand, smudged, misty, pressed against the rain-covered window. I couldn't move. How could there be a handprint on the outside? It was the second floor, no balcony, no overhang, nothing to stand on. I bolted out of the room, down to the first floor, and locked every door and window I could find. My heart was pounding out of my chest. My mind scrambled for a rational explanation. The next morning, I went out to the backyard. The sky was still gray, the grass soaked. I looked up at the second floor window, empty. But just below it, on the ground, I noticed a patch of sunken mud, like someone had stood there for a long, long time, staring up. I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was some neighborhood kid pulling a prank? But the fence was tall and locked, and there were no footprints leading in or out. That night, I shut the curtains tightly and avoided the office altogether. But the strange occurrences didn't stop. A few nights later, I was reading in bed when I heard it. A faint tapping on glass. Soft, like fingertips against a rain-speckled window. I froze. The sound continued. It was coming from the second-floor window. I crept out into the hallway toward the office door. It was slightly ajar. The curtain inside swayed gently, though there was no wind. The hallway light spilled onto the floor, casting a long, strange shadow under the door. I didn't go in. I went back to my room, shut the door, turned on every light I had, and stayed up until dawn. The next morning, I forced myself to enter the office. Nothing had changed except for a new handprint. This one was larger, clearer, and higher up on the window, as if whatever made it was climbing. I called the landlord and told him everything. He went quiet for a moment, then said something I'll never forget. Yeah, the last tenant said something about that second floor window too, but only when it rains. Otherwise, it's fine. I pressed him for more details, but he just chuckled and changed the subject. That night, it rained again. I closed every window, drew every curtain, turned on every light. I didn't enter the office, but right at 2 a.m., the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, silence fell. Only the sound of rain and my own racing heartbeat remained. And then the tapping began. Not just one, several, rhythmic, insistent. It sounded like something was knocking on every window in the house at once. I hid in the bedroom, gripping my phone with shaking hands, and called the police. As soon as the line connected, the tapping stopped. They arrived 15 minutes later. Flashlights swept the yard, the house, the windows. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no muddy footprints, no handprints. But they didn't look closely enough at the inside of the second floor window, where I could still see, clear as day, a fresh wet handprint pressed to the glass. I moved out that weekend. I didn't ask for my deposit back, didn't take most of my furniture. I just wanted to get away. Now I live in a ground floor apartment. No second story, no high windows, no strange tapping sounds. But sometimes on rainy nights, I catch a glimpse, just for a second, of a shadow shifting outside the glass. And I wonder, is it still looking for another window to tap on?